back in chapter 4, we graphed linear equations, and what we're going to do in this lesson is we're going to graph two equations and kind of see where they cross. It's called a system when you have more than one equation involved in a problem. So we write that a system of linear equations is a set of two or more linear equations. Now in 8th grade we only deal with two, but in high school you will have 3 or more. Back in chapter 1, we had just regular equations and we had one variable, so the answer to the variable was the solution. But now if you think about what our equations look like in this chapter, right, they look like over here where there's both an x and a y. So there's two variables, which means that our solution is not just the value of the variable, it's the ordered pair that is a solution to each equation in the system. When you're graphing, which is the technique we're going to look at today, you can see the solution because it will be where the lines intersect. So we call that the point of intersection. All right, so let's look down here at example 1. We have to solve this system by graphing. So now in order to graph, we need to know the slope and the intercept. That's back from chapter 4 because this is written in slope-intercept form. So in this first equation, which I'll label blue, the m is 2, which we know is 2 over 1, and the intercept is at 5. And for this second one, which I'll label red, the slope is -4, which we know is -4 over 1, and the b value, the y-intercept, is at -1. So let's graph the first one. I'm going to put a dot at 5, because you start at the y-intercept. First find the value of b, plot it on the y-axis. Now move the slope. So a slope of 2 means up to right 1. I'll do that a few times. And I can also go down to left 1. And put a bunch of dots, because the more dots you have, the more accurate your line will be. And then connect the dots to make a line. Make sure it goes through the whole grid. So I'm on a computer, you're on a piece of paper, so you should have a ruler. My line's a little slanted. Hopefully yours is better. And the last thing we have to do is write the equation on the line. All right, when you're ready, let's graph the other one. I'm going to put a dot here at -1, and down 4, right 1 is my slope. Do that a couple of times. And I can also go up 4, left 1. Oh, and I see where they cross right there. Now the reason that it's important to extend your lines and make sure you have a ruler is because if you're not accurate with your line, then your point of intersection will not be correct. So you want to make sure that you are nice and straight and you have lots of dots and you have a nice accurate line. Now that's great that we have the picture, but the actual answer, which is the solution, is the point where they cross. So the official answer to this is the coordinate point -1, 3. You haven't officially answered the question until you say what the intersection is. All right, example 2 is our first example where we have to write our own equations. So it's a little tricky at first. I give you these little guided boxes, and eventually the guided boxes will disappear and you'll be able to write the equations on your own. But for the meantime, we've got these guided boxes. So what I'd like you to do is read the story, and then when you're done, press play and I will help you create the equations. All right, so let's write our equation for this first one. Number of extra points plus the number of field goals equals the total number of kicks. So if you go back up to the story and you read that the kicker made a total of 8 extra points and field goals. So since we don't know the number of extra points, we'll just call that X. Since we don't know the number of field goals, we'll call that Y, because that's what we're trying to find out, right? If you read the question right here, it says find the number of extra points and the number of field goals. But we do know the total, right? Back up in the story, it says the kicker made a total of 8 extra points and field goals. So that's our first equation. Now we read the second equation. the points per extra point. Well, each extra point is 1. So we have 1 times the number of extra points, which we don't know. That's what we're trying to figure out. So we leave that as x, plus, and I'm just following the guide here, the points per field goal. If you go back up to the story, it says that the field goals were 3. And then the number of field goals, which we don't know, so we write times y. That equals the total number of points, which it says is 12. So I'm just going to kind of neaten up my equations a little. Whoa, that's weird. And I'm going to rewrite them as x plus y equals 8, because that wasn't so crazy. But the second equation I'm going to write as x plus 3y equals 12. So it just looks a little friendlier. All right, now we're going to practice something all the way back from pre-4, hope you didn't forget it, where we get the y by itself. So this first equation is x plus y equals 8. So when I get the y by itself, I subtract x. So I have y equals negative x plus 8. Now when I go to this one, I subtract x, so I get 3y equals negative x plus 12. Then I divide by 3, and I get y equals negative 1/3 x plus 4. Now that might have been a little rusty for you, but it shouldn't be totally unfamiliar. So now I'm ready to go back up to the graph. And I have y equals negative x plus 8 as one equation. So I put a dot at 8. Then I go down 1, right 1. And I make a nice line. And now I go to the other one. I'm going to put a dot at 4. And now I go down 1, right 3. And you can see where they're intersecting right here at the point 6, 2. Now, you don't say the intersection is 6, 2 because it was a word problem, right? It says find the number of extra points and find the number of field goals. So what does 6, 2 mean in the story? Ooh, we're going to interpret 6, 2. So 6, 2 means six, I gotta scroll up, was x field goals or extra points. That was extra points. So 6, 2 means 6 extra points and 2 field goals. So the main concept of 5.1 is example 1. Example 2 is an application of this topic. So if you kind of got a little stumped on example 2, writing the equations, getting the y by itself, interpreting, that's okay. We're really going to focus on graphing the lines and just finding their intersection point. That's the main skill. So if you have any questions on that, write them down and ask me when you come to class.